bien. Isto no es un mensaje bonito para motivar 5 minutos. Esto es una verdad cruel, puro libra. Si sigues culpando a la suerte, al gobierno, a tu familia, al lugar donde naciste, entonces prepárate. Porque dentro de 10 años, estás en el mismo lugar, con las mismas cuillas, y con los mismos sueños rotos. La verdad es esta, no es tu vida la que está mal, y es tu mentalidad. El mundo no le debe nada a nadie. La vida no premia intenciones, premia acciones. Muchos dicen, cuando tenga tiempo, cuando tenga dinero, cuando alguien me ayude. Pero los que ganan dicen si pienso ahora con lo que tengo. El cambio no liga cuando todo es perfecto, y el cambio le liga cuando te decides dejar de ser la víctima, y te conviertes en el responsable. Nadie va a venir a salvarte, y eso no es triste, eso es poder. Por cuando entiendes que todo depende de ti, dejas de esperar permiso, dejas de buscar excusas, y empiezas a construir. Hoy tienes dos opciones, seguir pensando igual, y vivir la misma vida. O cambiar tu mentalidad, y crear una vida que te obliga a respetar. Recuerda esto, si sigues pensando así, tu vida nunca cambiará. Pero si cambias hoy, tu futuro no tendrá límites. If you keep blaming everything else, nothing in your life will change. This is not an opinion, it is a law of how reality works. Blame feels comfortable, because it gives you an excuse to stay exactly where you are while convincing yourself that the problem is outside of you. When you point your finger at circumstances, at people, at the system, at bad luck, you silently give away your power. The moment you say, "It's not my fault," you also say, "It's not in my control." And if it's not in your control, then you have no reason to act, no reason to change, no reason to grow. Blame creates a prison that looks like safety, but it is actually stagnation. Blaming your past is one of the most common traps. You replay old stories about what happened to you, who hurt you, what you didn't get, and you use those stories as proof that your present is limited. But the past is not a steering wheel, it is a rearview mirror. You can look at it to understand, but the moment you let it decide where you are going, you stop moving forward. Every day you carry that blame, you carry extra weight that slows you down. Not because the past was easy, but because staying angry at it changes nothing about today. Blaming other people feels logical because people really do affect us. Families shape us, teachers influence us, bosses open or close doors, societies create obstacles. All of that is real. But when you live in blame, you turn those realities into permanent chains. You wait for someone else to apologize, to change, to understand you, before you give yourself permission to move on. Meanwhile, time keeps passing. Your potential keeps waiting. And the person you could become stays trapped behind a condition that may never be fulfilled. Blaming the system is another easy refuge. It sounds intelligent and justified. You talk about corruption, inequality, unfair rules, limited opportunities. And yes, the system is imperfect. It always has been. But history is full of people who rose in broken systems, while millions of others used the same system as a reason to quit. The difference was never the system alone, it was the decision to act despite it. Blame turns reality into a wall. Responsibility turns reality into something you can climb. Blaming luck is perhaps the most dangerous excuse of all. When you believe that success is about luck, you stop preparing. You stop learning. You stop showing up consistently. You tell yourself that some people are just born lucky, and others are not, and in doing so, you dismiss the years of effort, failure, discipline, and discomfort that are invisible from the outside. Luck visits those who are already moving. Blame waits at home, and complains that luck never knocks. There is a hidden cost to blame that most people never talk about. It slowly destroys your self-respect. Deep down you know when you are avoiding responsibility. You feel it when you make excuses instead of decisions. Over time, that gap between who you are and who you know you could be grows wider, and with it comes frustration, envy, and bitterness. You start judging others because facing yourself feels harder. None of this happens overnight, but it happens inevitably when blame becomes a habit. Taking responsibility does not mean denying reality or pretending life is fair. It means accepting that regardless of what happened, what matters now is what you do next. Responsibility is not about guilt, it is about ownership. The moment you say, "This is my life, and I am responsible for the next step," something shifts inside you. You may not control everything, But you always control your response, your effort, your standards, and your consistency. That is more than enough to change a life. As long as blame is your language, your life will speak the same results back to you again and again. The same problems will repeat in different forms. The same disappointments will show up with different names. Not because the world is against you, but because nothing changes until you do. It's not your life that's broken, it's your mindset. That sentence alone has the power to either offend you or free you, depending on how ready you are to hear it. Most people look at their circumstances and assume the problem lies there in their bank account, their job, their country, their relationships, their past. They wake up every day surrounded by the same reality and conclude that reality is the enemy. But circumstances are neutral. They don't think, they don't decide, they don't sabotage. They simply respond to the way you think, act, and choose over time. A broken mindset doesn't always look negative on the surface. Sometimes it looks like being realistic. Sometimes it sounds like wisdom. This is just how life is. People like me don't get ahead. Tried before, it didn't work. These statements feel safe because they protect you from disappointment. But what they really do is quietly lower your standards and shrink your vision. When your mindset is damaged, you don't aim high and fail, you aim low and call it maturity. The mind is the filter through which you experience everything. Two people can live in the same situation and have completely different lives because they interpret reality differently. One sees obstacles and stops. The other sees the same obstacles and adapts. One sees rejection and gives up. The other sees feedback and adjusts. The difference is not intelligence or talent. It is the internal story running in the background. That story decides whether you take action or retreat. When your mindset is broken, you wait for motivation instead of building discipline. You wait to feel ready instead of starting imperfectly. You wait for confidence instead of earning it through action. This waiting feels reasonable, but it is a slow form of self-betrayal. Days turn into months. Months turn into years. And one day you look back and realize nothing changed, not because you lacked opportunity, but because you kept negotiating with your comfort. A damaged mindset also turns fear into a decision maker. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. Fear of being seen trying and not succeeding. So you choose the safer pain of staying the same over the uncertain pain of growth. You tell yourself you are being patient. But patience without action is just procrastination with a nicer name. Growth is uncomfortable by design. If you are never uncomfortable, you are not evolving. Your life is not broken because struggle exists. Struggle is not a sign of failure, it is a sign of movement. Every level of growth comes with resistance. But when your mindset is weak, resistance feels like proof that you should stop. You misinterpret difficulty as a message that you are not meant for more, when in reality it is evidence that you are stretching beyond who you were. A broken mindset keeps you focused on what you lack instead of what you can build. It measures progress by speed instead of consistency. It compares your behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel, and then uses that comparison to justify quitting. Comparison drains energy, because it shifts your focus from your own path to someone else's timing. No one builds a strong life by constantly checking if someone else is ahead. The most dangerous part of a broken mindset is that it normalizes mediocrity. You surround yourself with people who think the same way, talk the same way, complain the same way. Together you reinforce the belief that wanting more is unrealistic and trying harder is foolish. Over time, you stop questioning those beliefs and start living them. Not because they are true, but because they are familiar. When your mindset changes, your life doesn't transform overnight, but it does change direction immediately. You start asking different questions. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can I do with this?" You stop waiting for perfect conditions and start creating momentum with imperfect ones. That shift alone alters your trajectory. Your life responds to the standards you accept in your mind. If you believe you are limited, you will find evidence everywhere. If you believe you can grow, you will find options where others see walls. Nothing outside of you has to change first. The environment follows the identity you operate from. And identity is shaped by mindset, not by circumstances. The world rewards action, not intentions. And this truth exposes one of the biggest illusions people live under. Intentions feel powerful because they live in the mind, where everything is possible and nothing is tested. You can intend to change, intend to work harder, intend to become disciplined, intend to fix your life, and still remain exactly the same. Intentions cost nothing. They demand no sacrifice, no discomfort, no risk. That is why they are so attractive. You can feel productive without producing anything. You can feel hopeful without moving an inch. The world, however, does not respond to what you mean to do. It responds to what you actually do, consistently, over time. Reality doesn't listen to promises you make to yourself at night when motivation is high. It only reacts to behavior. You don't get paid for potential. You don't get respected for plans. You don't get stronger because you thought about training. Results are a language, and action is the only way to speak it. Many people confuse good intentions with progress. They say, "At least I'm trying," when trying only exists if there is evidence. Effort without execution is just a story you tell yourself to avoid facing the truth. You can want success deeply and still never earn it. Wanting is emotional. Action is physical. One feels good in the moment, the other feels hard but creates change. The world has never rewarded someone for wanting something badly enough. It rewards the person who shows up when it's boring, uncomfortable, and uncertain. Intentions also create a dangerous delay. You keep telling yourself that you will start soon, tomorrow, next week, when things calm down, when you feel more confident. This delay feels responsible, but it slowly turns into avoidance. Life does not pause while you prepare mentally. Opportunities don't wait for you to feel ready. Momentum belongs to those who move first, not those who think the longest. Action forces clarity. Intentions stay vague. When you act, you immediately get feedback. You find out what works and what doesn't. You learn your weaknesses, your limits, and your strengths. Without action, everything stays theoretical. You can believe you are capable of more, but until you test that belief through action, it is just imagination. Growth lives on the other side of friction, and friction only appears when you move. The world is full of people with good intentions. They intend to be better parents, better partners, healthier, more disciplined, more focused. But intention without execution slowly becomes self-deception. Over time, this gap between intention and action damages self-trust. You stop believing yourself. You make promises and break them privately. And when self-trust is gone, confidence disappears with it. Action is uncomfortable because it removes excuses. Once you act, you can't hide behind, "I would have if," or "I could have been." You are exposed. You are visible. That vulnerability scares people, so they stay in the safety of intention. But safety has a price. It costs progress. It costs respect. It costs the version of you that only exists if you move. The world rewards action because action creates value. A business exists because someone acted. Skills exist because someone practiced. Strength exists because someone trained. Relationships grow because someone showed up. None of these things come from desire alone. Action is the bridge between imagination and reality. Without that bridge, ideas die where they are born. Even failure is rewarded more than intention. Failure gives experience. It builds resilience. It sharpens judgment. Intention gives nothing but comfort. The world opens doors to people who try, not to people who plan forever. Movement attracts opportunity. Stagnation attracts nothing. Action doesn't require confidence. Confidence is built by action. Action doesn't require perfect conditions. Conditions improve because of action. Waiting to feel ready is backwards. Readiness is a result, not a requirement. The people who seem fearless are not immune to doubt. They just refuse to let doubt stop their behavior. Every time you choose action over intention, you send yourself a message: "I am someone who moves." Over time, that identity compounds. Small actions stack, momentum builds, and eventually, the world responds, not because it is kind, but because action forces reality to react. The world is indifferent to what you meant to do. It only acknowledges what you did. Winners start now, with what they have, because they understand a truth most people spend their lives avoiding. Waiting for perfect conditions is just fear dressed up as patience. It sounds reasonable, even smart, but it quietly delays action until momentum dies. The idea that you need more time, more money, more knowledge, more confidence before you begin is comforting, because it removes urgency. It gives you permission to stay where you are without admitting that you're afraid to move. Starting now does not mean being reckless or unprepared. It means refusing to let readiness become an excuse. Every winner you admire once stood at the beginning with less than they wanted and more uncertainty than they were comfortable with. They didn't have clarity, they built it. They didn't have confidence, they earned it. They didn't have resources, they learned how to work around limitations. What they had was the willingness to begin imperfectly. Most people underestimate how powerful starting is. The first step is not about progress. It's about identity. The moment you start, you stop seeing yourself as someone who plans and start seeing yourself as someone who acts. That shift changes how you think, how you decide, and how you respond to challenges. You stop asking, "Am I ready?" and start asking, "What's the next move?" That question alone creates momentum. Starting with what you have forces creativity. When resources are limited, excuses lose their power. You can't rely on comfort, so you rely on effort. You can't buy solutions, so you build them. Constraints sharpen focus. They push you to learn faster, adapt quicker, and become resourceful instead of entitled. Many people wait for abundance before acting, not realizing that action is what creates abundance. There is a dangerous myth that winners had some hidden advantage at the start. The truth is, most advantages are built in motion. Skills are developed through repetition. Connections are made by showing up. Opportunities appear once you're already moving. Standing still gives you nothing to work with. Motion creates information, and information creates leverage. Starting now also exposes resistance, and that's a good thing. Resistance doesn't show up when you're thinking or planning, it shows up when you act. Doubt, fear, fatigue, and distraction all surface once you begin. Avoiding the start means avoiding these feelings, but it also means avoiding growth. Winners don't eliminate resistance, they train themselves to move through it. Using what you have teaches humility and discipline. You stop waiting to feel special and start doing the work that needs to be done. You learn to respect small progress. You understand that consistency beats intensity. Doing something small every day with limited tools will always outperform doing nothing while waiting for perfect conditions. Momentum favors the committed, not the comfortable. There is also clarity that only comes from starting. Planning feels safe because it stays theoretical. Starting forces reality to respond. You learn what actually matters and what doesn't. You adjust based on feedback instead of assumptions. Many people overthink because they lack data, and data only comes from action. Beginning turns confusion into direction. Winners don't start because they are fearless. They start because they are tired of staying the same. They accept that fear will come with them and move anyway. They understand that progress is not a straight line, and that mistakes are part of the cost. Waiting doesn't reduce risk, it increases regret. Time passes whether you act or not. Starting now with what you have also builds self-respect. Each time you show up despite limitations, you reinforce trust in yourself. You prove that you don't need ideal circumstances to move forward. Over time, that self-trust compounds into confidence. Not the loud kind, but the quiet kind that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. The difference between winners and everyone else is not talent or luck. It is the refusal to delay. While others wait for permission, winners begin. While others complain about what they lack, winners work with what's in front of them. Momentum doesn't come from someday. It comes from now. No one is coming to save you, and that's your power. At first, this idea feels harsh, even cold, because it destroys a fantasy many people secretly hold on to. The fantasy that someone will arrive at the right moment and fix things. A person, an opportunity, a lucky break, a government change, a mentor, a miracle. This belief is comforting because it shifts responsibility away from you. As long as you believe help is coming, you can afford to wait. You can pause your effort, lower your urgency, and delay hard decisions. But that same belief slowly drains your strength. When you expect to be saved, you unconsciously stay passive. You look outward instead of inward. You scan your surroundings for signs instead of building skills. You wait for validation before taking action. And while you wait, life keeps moving. The truth is, no one is responsible for carrying you forward. People may support you, guide you, inspire you, but no one can do the internal work for you. No one can think for you, decide for you, or show up consistently in your place. This realization hurts because it removes excuses. Once you accept that no one is coming, you can no longer blame delays on the absence of help. You can no longer say, if only someone believed in me, or, if only I had support. The focus shifts directly onto you, your habits, your choices, your discipline. That level of honesty is uncomfortable, but it is also where real power begins. Depending on rescue weakens your identity. It trains your mind to associate progress with external permission. You start believing that your life only moves when someone else acts first. That belief keeps you small. It teaches you to wait instead of lead, to follow instead of build. Over time, you stop trusting yourself to handle challenges alone, and that lack of self-trust becomes more limiting than any external obstacle. When you fully understand that no one is coming, something changes. Urgency appears. You stop wasting time on complaints and start asking better questions. What can I do today? What skill can I learn? What action can I take with what I already have? The energy you used to spend waiting is redirected into movement. This shift doesn't make life easy, but it makes it honest. There is also freedom in this truth. When you stop expecting to be saved, you stop feeling disappointed when people fail you. You stop needing approval to move forward. You stop measuring your worth by how much attention or help you receive. You become internally anchored. Your motivation no longer depends on applause or encouragement. It comes from commitment. Many people fear this mindset because they think it means isolation. It doesn't. It means ownership. You can still accept help, still learn from others, still collaborate. The difference is that you no longer depend on it. You don't pause your life when support is missing. You move anyway. That independence is strength. History is shaped by people who acted without guarantees. They didn't know if help would come, so they became their own backup plan. They prepared themselves to endure rejection, failure, and uncertainty. They stopped waiting to be chosen and chose themselves instead. That decision is what separates those who survive from those who stagnate. Waiting to be saved also delays maturity. Responsibility forces growth. When you know the outcome depends on you, you become more disciplined with your time, more intentional with your actions, more aware of your weaknesses. You stop romanticizing comfort and start respecting effort. Life becomes less about fairness and more about effectiveness. There is power in knowing that even if no one shows up, you will. Even if encouragement disappears, you will continue. Even if circumstances remain imperfect, you will adapt. That mindset creates resilience. It builds a quiet confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. You move differently when you know you are your own foundation. No one coming to save you is not abandonment. It is an invitation. An invitation to step into responsibility, to claim your agency, to stop outsourcing your future. The moment you stop waiting for rescue is the moment you start building something real. The moment you stop being a victim, you start building your future, and that moment is quieter than most people expect. There is no dramatic announcement, no applause, no instant transformation. It begins internally, with a decision to stop narrating your life through what happened to you, and start defining it by what you choose to do next. Victimhood is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it hides behind intelligence, behind explanations, behind carefully constructed stories that justify staying stuck. Seeing yourself as a victim can feel logical because pain is real. Loss is real. Injustice is real. Acknowledging those things is human. But living inside them as an identity is where damage begins. When victimhood becomes your lens, every challenge feels personal, every obstacle feels unfair, and every setback becomes proof that the world is against you. That mindset doesn't protect you, it paralyzes you. Victim thinking shifts your attention away from solutions and locks it onto causes. You become more focused on who is to blame than on what can be built. Your energy goes into explaining your situation instead of improving it. Over time, explanation replaces effort. You get better at describing your pain than at changing your reality. And the more you repeat the story, the more permanent it feels. There is a subtle comfort in victimhood. It lowers expectations. If you are a victim, failure is understandable, and success feels optional. Responsibility is heavy. And victimhood offers relief from that weight. You don't have to risk embarrassment or rejection if you already believe the outcome is out of your control. But that comfort is expensive. It costs you agency. It costs you growth. It costs you the future you could build if you accepted responsibility. The shift away from victimhood does not mean denying what you went through. It means refusing to let it define what you become. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What can I create despite this?" That question changes everything. It returns power to your hands. It turns pain into raw material instead of a prison. When you drop the victim mindset, your behavior changes before your circumstances do. You stop waiting for fairness and start preparing for progress. You stop needing validation for your struggle and start seeking results. You realize that no one owes you understanding, but you owe yourself effort. That realization can feel lonely, but it is also empowering. Building a future requires ownership. Ownership of your time, your habits, your reactions, your standards. Victimhood hands those things away. Ownership takes them back. Even small acts of ownership matter. Showing up when you don't feel like it. Learning when it would be easier to complain. Choosing discipline over comfort. These actions may seem insignificant, but they compound over time. Victimhood keeps you reactive. You respond emotionally to whatever happens. Ownership makes you proactive, you anticipate. You plan, you adjust. You stop being surprised by difficulty because you expect it. You stop seeing resistance as an insult and start seeing it as part of the process. That shift in interpretation is critical. The same obstacle that once discouraged you now becomes information. Letting go of victimhood also changes how you relate to others. You stop competing over who has suffered more. You stop seeking sympathy as fuel. You stop bonding over complaints and start bonding over growth. Your conversations change. Your standards change. Your environment slowly begins to reflect your internal shift. The future is not built by people who had easy lives. It is built by people who decided that their pain would not be the final chapter. The moment you stop being a victim is the moment you accept that your story is still being written, and you are holding the pen. That responsibility can feel heavy, but it is also what makes transformation possible. Nothing externally needs to change for this shift to begin. No apology is required. No permission is needed. The decision happens privately, quietly. But once it happens, everything you do carries a different weight. You are no longer waiting for life to be different. You are actively shaping it.